A big day for our country. And let's bring in ABC News investigative reporter and producer Olivia Rubin, who was inside the courtroom today when Donald Trump was there, along with Shan, who's white-collar defense attorney and former federal prosecutor. Olivia, let me just begin with you. You had the front row seat. Walk us through what happened.
Terry, I think surreal is a terrific word to describe what was happening in that courtroom. As I've said, the former president entered into the room and he had sort of a grimace on his face. He took in everyone in the room and he made his way to the defendant's table where the proceedings began. He sat there. He showed very little emotion throughout the entire hearing. He stared straight ahead. He looked at the DA's team who was speaking. He at times leaned side to side speaking with his attorneys. And that was sort of how the former president took the hearing. He, of course, entered his own not guilty plea, excuse me. He did not defer that to his attorneys. He entered it on his own, and he really stayed rather quiet, rather subdued throughout the hearing. Again, really not showing much emotion as the prosecutor's team detailed these crimes that they allege he had committed after they said that he had been threatening members of their team, after they said that one of his attorneys possibly had a conflict of interest there. So ticking through these things that they're saying the former president had done, and he, Terry, had no choice but just to sit there.
So, Shan, DA Alvin Bragg spoke about the indictment just a short bit ago after Trump showed up there at the courthouse. Let's take a listen.
Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned on a New York Supreme Court indictment returned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about. 34 false statements made to cover up other crimes. These are felony crimes in New York State, no matter who you are. We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
So, Shan, based on everything that you've heard today, you've seen the indictment. How strong of a case do you really think the prosecution has here?
It looks like a very strong case. A lot of the speculation and pre-indictment criticism has really focused on two issues. First would be the credibility of what was expected to be the lone star witness, Michael Cohen. And the criticism there, of course, is he's a cooperator, he's been convicted, and you know, cooperators are actually used every day in successful prosecutions, and Cohen has actually, over the years, shown himself to be very consistent on his testimony. So that probably was not going to be a real slam dunk winner for the defense, but the indictment actually gives an even better answer to that because it now shows that David Pecker, the former National Enquirer editor, is also a really critical part of the case, and his role also emphasizes that this was not just a one-off situation with the payment to Stormy Daniels, but it emphasizes the pattern and practice they're engaged in, which is typically pretty compelling evidence to a jury when you have that type of practice. The other big question was whether or not Bragg was using what's been termed as a novel legal theory. Now, charging the falsification of business records isn't novel in the least. It's been used, you know, an enormous amount of times in New York law. The question is, what are they tying it to? And it sounds like he's tying it to state as well as potentially federal election law violations, and that's very strong.
So there's new evidence. This whole scheme, as the prosecutor alleges, which includes the publisher of the National Enquirer, as well as Michael Cohen, former President Trump's fixer. So let's bring in legal contributor and law professor at American University, Kimberly Wehle. Kimberly, Trump, he's now the first criminal defendant to run for presidential office. I mean, I guess he hasn't run yet, but I guess he has announced, so he is running. How much is that going to impact this? And what's your reaction to the indictment now that it's out?
Well, I agree completely with my friend Shan that there's a lot more sort of meat on the bones now. We've been trying to anticipate, because this is so important now, for several days, what could be on there. And the expectation, it was Stormy Daniels, one-off, and maybe federal election campaign violations. But not only do we know that's a more sort of richer factual record here with multiple witnesses, they also reference potentially Alan Weisselberg, the CFO of the Trump Organization, who pled guilty to multiple counts of tax fraud and other crimes, as well as other people within the Trump Organization. This we won't know until if and whether there's a trial, how much evidence, but this is not as we say, a slender read, at least based on this document. As far as the election, it's just stunning to imagine that this could unfold in the midst of, that is the trial prior to 2022. And we have multiple additional criminal investigations pending, 3 at the federal level and 1 in Georgia. So the law is going to play out the way it plays out for every criminal defendant, probably better than for Donald Trump. He got some kid glove treatment, which I think he should have given his office today, that many people do not get in the criminal justice system. And politics, you know, Terry, it's just hard to imagine where we will be in a year or two.
Well, and that's what we've been talking about, Shan. I mean, there's 4 investigations going on now, all centered around the former president. Is it possible that he could actually run for the White House, win, and still be in the midst of these ongoing investigations? I mean, they can't impact his run for president, right?
That's right, they can't. Were he to be convicted of the sedition insurrection, that could affect his ability to serve. It wouldn't stop him from running, I think. And the big question right now, I mean, personally, I wish DOJ had moved faster in the beginning. Perhaps the timing would not be so dire at this point. But yes, he certainly, I think, plans to run no matter what happens to him on the criminal front. And as Kim was pointing out, you know, politically, it's really unfathomable that we're in this situation. But the only correct course to pursue is really to let these different independent investigations play themselves out. And if those prosecutors determine there's enough evidence to charge him, they should move forward with it, hopefully ASAP.
All right, Olivia Rubin, Kimberly Wehle, Shan Yu, thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.